बहार लौट आएगी। हवा चली तो पतझड़ों ने धरतियों को चूम कर कहा, बहार लौट आएगी। हवा चली तो पतझड़ों ने धरतियों को चूम कर कहा, बहार आएगी। हवा चली तो पतझड़ों ने धरतियों को चूम कर कहा, बहार आएगी। खिज़ां है चंद रोज की, बहार लौट आएगी। बहार वो कि जिसकी धुन में मजनुओं ने बेखतर नई हदों को छू लिया। बहार वो कि जिसको रहबरों ने पाके खो दिया। बहार वो कि जिसको रहजनों के हाथ बेचकर खिज़ां खरीद लाए थे। ये रहजनों की रहजनी तो संगे मीले राह है, जो जिंदगी की मोहनी से अब भी तुझको चाह है। उठा रबाब अहद कर, मैं जिंदगी की शान में फिर कसीदे गाऊंगा। मैं फिर से लौ लगाऊंगा, मैं फिर से दिल जलाऊंगा। करूंगा फिर से तेज तर कलम के नश्तरों की धुन। मैं मेहनतों के देवता से फिर कहूंगा, या खुदा समेट ले वजूद को समेट कर तू अपनी चुप को तोड़ दे। फिर एक बार लफ्ज़ कुन से हो नया जहां आता। फिर एक बार लफ्ज़ कुन से हो नया जहां आता। वही समर हो फिर आता कि जिसको चख के कह सकूं, मुझे जहान चाहिए। जहान वो कि जिसमें मुझको जुर्रते गुनाह हो। जहान वो कि जिसमें मुझको जुर्रते गुनाह हो। ये स्वर्ग नर्क साथ हैं, शराब ही शराब हैं। जो चंद एक हैं इधर, उधर तो लाखों लाख हैं। मुझे तो अपनी धरतियों पे ही बहार चाहिए। मुझे तो अपनी धरतियों पे ही बहार चाहिए।
Hello everyone. Today I bring to you a very interesting experience. My dialogue with Gauhar Raza, who was trained as a scientist. He became a poet. He started getting invited to mushairas to read out his Urdu poetry. Gauhar's poems are deeply rooted in his political beliefs and his social conscience. Our conversation was more like gupshup about life, about politics, about violence, about injustice, and about the hope for the future. He read some poetry, I read some poetry. We asked questions to each other about poetry and life. This dialogue switches between English and Hindi. I hope you have as much fun watching as we had, traveling different journeys to different alleys and pathways of our memory. So over to Gauhar.
जी,
Salam alaikum.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
How are you this evening?
Yeah, pretty well.
Wonderful. I want to start our conversation by telling you a very interesting story. One night, I had driven to the top of a mountain, looking over the mountain at the city, and a feather came flying to me. I tried to catch it, it went away. It was just a brief moment, like maybe a few seconds moment. But that night at 2 o'clock, I woke up with an epiphany and I saw myself in that feather. And for the first time in my life, I wrote a poem at that moment called An Unstuck Feather. I spoke to one of my teachers from my NID days, who I still respect. I said, what happened? I've never written a poem in my life. And one day a feather triggered it. And then I never stopped writing a poem. So he gave me Iqbal's poem. हजारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनुरी पे रोती है, बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा.
Correct.
So what is your interpretation of those lines?
My interpretation of those lines of Iqbal is that everybody has something inside, and unless and until there is a right moment, things don't come out. And when they come out, then you become a Didavar.
Wonderful.
That's one interpretation.
And there could be
Uh,
many.
then the vision enlarges suddenly, and you become really a Didavar.
Wonderful. And what is the meaning of Didavar?
Didavar is with broad vision, who has a vision,
Okay.
who has a vision. Yeah. And it's been used in various meanings, as it happens in every language. That
Okay.
a word is, when it comes to poetry, it assumes a large number of meanings.
Right.
So, in fact, Nargis is a flower,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Nargis is supposed to be a flower like eye. It has a shape. So a lot of imagery in Urdu word refers to Nargisi aankhein.
Ah.
Your eyes are like Nargis. And he has played with that imagery in this couplet. And what he says in plain words, that for a very long time, uh, there is uh, no growth of that kind of eye which has a vision. Because Nargis as a flower doesn't have vision.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize that
Yes.
he's playing with that idea that
Absolutely.
Nargis is a flower, but
Yes.
it's like an eye which has no vision.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people in the world who have eyes but don't have vision.
Correct.
So in an eon, one eye uh, sprouts which has a vision.
Wonderful.
And that distinguishes between normal Nargis and this Nargis with a vision.
Fantastic. So this is so good. And I don't care if you continue smoking on the screen. That's fine. As long as you don't mind. But
No,
but I do want to.
it
I
can
relate.
generally divert people from, uh, in fact, focusing on what is being said. That
Correct.
is the only reason. Otherwise, I don't care.
Okay. But I do want to read a poem I wrote yesterday.
Please go ahead.
So this is my latest poem, and trust me, for many reasons, I'm feeling very connected to you. This is going to be a gupshup session, not like an interview.
Lovely. It will be very refreshing for me because I have
Yeah.
given a very long interview, in fact, 2 hours interview just now on various things to which will be converted into an article.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
conversation is most welcome.
Excellent. So the poem is called Observe. When you have a question, don't ask anyone, just go where you think the answer lives and observe. You may find an answer. If you don't find the answer, change your question and observe again. If
Yeah,
you still can't find an answer, change your question again. Look around till at some point you will know that you have the right question. Then
wow.
just live with the question. The answer will come to you.
What a wonderful poem. Very good. Your other poems are also like this?
Yes. You know
Great.
what? Uh, are you tired, or can we just
No,
no?
absolutely not.
Can I?
Not for a conversation like
Okay.
this.
I want to read my Hindi poem. This is the
Please
day
go ahead.
Babri Masjid verdict came out.
Mhm.
I was deeply pained and I wrote this poem. आज मैं पहली बार महसूस कर रहा हूं कि मैं हिंदू हूं, इसलिए कि मैं याद कर रहा हूं तुम्हें आबिद, तुम्हें याद कर रहा हूं लेकिन महसूस नहीं कर सकता तुम्हें, इसलिए आज मैं पहली बार महसूस कर रहा हूं कि मैं हिंदू हूं। आज पहली बार मैं महसूस कर रहा हूं दूरी मेरी माँ से।
क्या बात।
मैं तुम्हें छोड़ आया कई साल पहले, आज तुम छोड़ गई मुझे। आज पहली बार महसूस कर रहा हूं कि मैं हिंदू हूं। आज याद आ रहे हो बापू, जब हम कर रहे थे जश्न, तुम पोंछ रहे थे आंसू नोआखाली में। आज मैं पहली बार महसूस कर रहा हूं कि मैं हिंदू हूं। आज याद आ रहे हो अब्दुल हमीद, तुमने जान न्योछावर की मेरे भविष्य के लिए, लेकिन हम लेकिन जब हम पहुंच गए उस भविष्य में, हम भूल गए तुम्हारी कुर्बानी को, क्योंकि अब माहौल ही ऐसा हो गया है। तुम कुर्बान हो गए हमारे भविष्य के लिए, हम कुर्बान हुए एक धुंधले इस इतिहास के मारे। आज याद आ रहे हो अडवाणी जी, दाने तुमने बोए थे फल कोई और खा रहे हैं।
क्या
आज
बात है।
याद आ रहे हैं मेरे पिताजी, तुम्हारे सपने सपने ही रह गए, अपने पराये हो गए। आज मैं पहली बार महसूस कर रहा हूं कि मैं हिंदू हूं। अब एक ही धुन याद आ रही है, ए मोहब्बत तेरे अंजाम पे रोना आया।
क्या बात है। वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड। क्या बात है। ऐसी ही पोएम्स ने कभी हिंदुस्तान की पहचान रची थी। आज बिल्कुल अलग तरह के गाने और आवाज हिंदुस्तान की पहचान रच रहे हैं। इसी का दुख है। वो आवाज शायद इतनी गहरी नहीं, ओछी है, पर बहुत लाउड है, बहुत तेज है, बहुत गूंजती हुई है। जो आवाज आज के दौर में इस मुल्क की पहचान को रच रही है। मेरे ख्याल में ज्यादा देर नहीं चलेगी, क्योंकि ये हिंदुस्तानी ग्रेन के खिलाफ है, उसके डीएनए के खिलाफ। ऐसे दौर पहले भी आए, लेकिन ये कि मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये बहुत ज्यादा देर चलेगी। ये गहरे जख्म जरूर छोड़ जाएगी। There will be deep cuts which will ooze for a very, very long time. But this cannot continue. This is unsustainable.
Absolutely. You pulled words out of my mouth. Yesterday, I was at dinner with my friends, and I
Yeah.
said, I have a observation based on my years of travels around the world, understanding people. I said, we as humans survive through healing, through a continuous process of healing. And it's necessary for our every breath. We have to keep healing because we keep burning our energy, we keep burning our tissues. And anger, hatred, jealousy are not sustainable. They erode us and they need healing. And if you keep someone in anger, hatred, you feel burnt out. You feel even more urgent need for healing. And I have a feeling the point of burnout is approaching. And people are going to need healing. And the voice of healing, I'm learning from my dialogues also that the Sufi songs, the Kabir songs, many people are finding solace in that. From all the interviews I've done, people keep bringing up Kabir, people keep bringing up Buddha, people keep bringing up Gandhi. And I think that's what gives me a hope that that time has come.
Yeah, I think, uh, and this I have repeated n number of times, that history at any given point of time has infinite paths which it can take, but it always takes only one path. So, and it does not naturally take a path. People have to strive for it, make sacrifices for it to take a particular path, and continuously struggle for that. In my opinion, broadly, Indian psyche votes for peace and harmony. And as a value, peace, harmony, anti-war positions, and anti-bigotry, anti-hate, it has a, a position of victory already. Because if you ask the most hateful person, even at the most hateful person you choose, and say, is there a value in hate? A direct question to him, without referring to hate against whom, against which community, caste, creed, or race. Without that, if you ask the question, the answer 99.9% would be that no, I don't hate. And I don't want to hate. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in attacking somebody physically. But yeah, when you put a value to it again, a rider, that how are Muslims, then the hate comes out. How are Hindus? Then the hate comes out. How do you rate the Jews? Then the hate comes out, or Muslims, or any. So, as a value, it has a natural victory over hate. The love, compassion, the anti-violence position is always higher than the position of hate. So, in my opinion, hate is unsustainable for a long period of time. Though in a class society and in a society where there is so much of segregation and there is so much to lose for some people, because if the world's 90% wealth is concentrated in 2% hands, and in this situation, there is a large mass which has to gain from peace, harmony, and demolishing this structure, which is extremely oppressive. And there is a lot to lose among those 2%. They would propagate hate. But even for them, it is unsustainable because they have amassed most of the wealth because of non-violence, peace in the society, harmony, development, and evolution of human beings. So there's a problem with hate, inherent problem with hate. Even if it's used for some time, it cannot be sustained for a long time by even those 2% people who will lose if most of the people rise against the oppressive, hateful structure.
So what this is, I don't know whether it's a science question or a philosophical question, but why do we even have hate? If it's destructive, why do we even have it?
It's a value which comes with private property, in my opinion. I don't think that human beings, even after gaining consciousness, and in my opinion, the consciousness, the questions that they ask, and when they started seeking systematically answers to their questions, even then there was no hatred among each other. We fought, definitely we fought even during those days like animals. But animals fight, do not, their fight is not based on hate. Their fight is based on something which is naturally driven. In case of human beings, when the private property came into existence and the idea of private property gained momentum in the society, then obviously you had to hate somebody who doesn't have or has property if you don't have it. Then when the hate starts, when the oppressive structure is constructed based on private property itself, then the hatred was a natural uh, outcome of that. And it has sustained over a period of time because of the private property. Uh, you amass private property, then other people challenge that how can you amass it, and then the hatred begins. And then you have to divide people, engineer hate, so you keep divided the large mass that is constituted by have-nots, because you are yourself scared that if they join hands in a society, then your structure, which is oppressive structure, is threatened. It cannot withstand the unity of the large people who are at the other end of the economic pyramid, especially economic pyramid. So you divide them. You divide them, create hate based on caste, creed, language, religion, anything and everything. And we are seeing that it's come back in a sense, because after the Soviet fall of Soviet Union, in my opinion, the use of hate has increased tremendously by the ruling classes and countries which are driven by corporate sector. Those who are producing arms in the
Yes.
on earth are likely to produce these arms so that the society keeps on supporting them, and without hatred and without clashes, arms industry cannot sustain itself.
Absolutely.
There will be no use of arms industry if there is peace all over. So they have an interest in producing terrorists all over the world. They have an interest in producing hatred wherever possible and wherever required, needed. If they want to control, I think very recently, day before yesterday, uh, uh, Kennedy Jr. has given a statement which makes it very apparent why this hatred, why this clash in Middle East. He makes it very clear that if Israel is not there, then China, Russia, Brazil, these countries will have control over 90% of the oil reserves, which will be very bad for the United States of America. So you create a hatred, which is sustained for a very long time in that part of the world. And then other who are hateful join it. Like in India, we see that our RSS and Bhaks have nothing to say about what is happening in Northeast. But they have, their heart is going out to support Israel. They want to sustain hate, and this becomes a peg for them.
You attribute that to emotional alignment, philosophical alignment, or business interests?
I think both, because their business interest cannot be sustained and propagated without emotional alignment. So it's very funny. Matlab, I'm appalled that this force, which was born out of support to fascism and killing of Jews, and which in fact celebrated annihilation of Jews, and annihilation one is, they use the word that Jews should be annihilated. And there are important lessons for us to learn by in India. They are supporting now Israel. They were clapping when the Jews were being killed. Now they are clapping when Jews are killing, or the Zionists are killing, not Jews. I've used the wrong word. Zionists are killing the Palestinian population, including children. So obviously they are emotionally aligned with that. But they are serving their masters, ultimately, the United States of America.
Maybe they are taking a page out of the violence book.
Yeah, you're right. They have probably memorized only a book, which is the book of violence.
So anyway, so this is very interesting. I am reminded of a workshop I did with a practitioner of Aikido.
Mm-hmm.
She just passed away last December, but my workshop was almost 25, 30 years ago with her. And she talked about her philosophy of Aikido. And she said that most martial arts have the philosophy of defending yourself against an aggressor. But she said her philosophy of Aikido is, when an aggressor is approaching me, I need to protect the aggressor. I need to calm her down, stabilize her, and deter her from her aggression. Because if I defend myself, aggression will continue. But if I calm her down and stabilize her on her feet, then the aggression will end forever. So that was her philosophy. And I actually used it in a specific situation, which I don't want to say in public. And it works. I think Gandhi did the same thing also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are absolutely right. But most of the time, the aggressor is not really the aggressor that's in front of you. Like in this particular case, which we are referring, uh, Israel cannot sustain even for a day the aggression that it's showing at the moment without the Western support, without US supplying its arms and money and threatening others by moving its nuclear arms into that area. Without that, it can. So this aggressor, even if you calm him down, the other aggressor, which is the real aggressor, will be hidden from your eye. So it's a bigger game in most of the cases. In personal cases, yes, it'll work. That I have an aggressor in front of me, and that aggressor, I calm down. So he is safe and I am safe. But in case the aggressor is somewhere sitting somewhere else, then it's a bigger picture. And that is where the couplet that you referred to, नरगिस अपनी बेरूरी पे रोती है, बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा. So that didawar has to be there for looking at the bigger picture.
Correct. So
unless you look at the bigger picture where the aggression lies, if the corporate sector is allowed to do what it is allowed to do today,
yeah,
then obviously aggression will remain.
Yeah. So I have a question here. You started in SFI in your youth. Being born in a socialist family, my parents always had friends from communist parties, be it Nambudripad or Ahilya Rangnekar, whoever, Rajeshwar Rao. I don't remember, so I'm like asking you, what was then and what is now your position on Gandhi's non-violence?
I think, see, when you have a system which you know as a Marxist that is oppressive and is based on exploitation of the proletariat or the working class. In that case, your position also keeps on changing. When a person like Gandhi is there and is trying to create a humane society, a society which is based on non-violence, a society that will progress with the mortar and blood of uh, not only tolerating each other but celebrating the diversity. All these elements are there, but the major structure still remains oppressive. Then obviously you have to point out what is Gandhi not saying. What is Gandhi not referring to? All these values, even then, were being propagated by the left movement all across the world. Miru Mir, which is again from Soviet Union, which means world peace. Then it is Gandhi's philosophy, right? And this became a major slogan of existence of Soviet Union. So the left always propagated what Gandhi was saying. What Gandhi was not saying at that time, that this structure itself is a problematic structure. And for that, the left did criticize, and we did criticize Gandhi. We still criticize Gandhi. But in today's condition, when not only the structure has become extremely oppressive, but the consciousness that is touching the Hitler's fascism, Hitler-like fascism, then obviously one needs to use even Gandhi, so that at least when you are being stifled, when your breath is being sucked, you can't speak, you can't express yourself, you can't raise the questions that need to be raised in a society like ours for the people of India. In that case, even Gandhi becomes an instrument for struggle, for at least going back to a situation where you can freely breathe at least. So yeah, there is a change in position. Today, Gandhi is definitely an icon which needs to be used for fighting the fascist forces in the country. So there is a major big shift. And personally, I've had respect for Gandhi once I gained consciousness and read him, because he was extremely courageous person. I find him almost as courageous a person as Bhagat Singh was. Bhagat Singh remains my hero even today. Gandhi is not my hero. But I have tremendous respect for Gandhi because he had immense courage to propagate what he believed in. And it was love, compassion, and worry for fellow human beings. Probably he was the single most and tallest leader in the country who was responsible for infusing another thing in our freedom movement. He always talked about the hatred towards imperialism, British imperialism. But there is hardly any statement. There is, in fact, no statement of his which accuses the white man. It was not a struggle against the white people. It was a struggle against the imperialism, which is remarkable. And Gandhi was the biggest, probably, leader who propagated this idea. And because of him, he didn't let the movement turn against individual white men. It was not a racist movement in the country. It was always against British imperialism. And therefore, I think that personally, I was always impressed with Gandhi, and there's a lot to learn from him.
Absolutely. And in fact, I am amazed that Nelson Mandela attributes his reconciliation commission to Gandhi's way of thinking also. And that is almost unimaginable, that a whole race that has gone through persecution for such a long time uh, even accommodates the idea of reconciliation.
Absolutely. It was amazing. It was amazing because there was so much of hatred against white people in that country. It was only Gandhi's idea implemented by Nelson Mandela, which he rightly pointed out that he acknowledges it not once but many times, that he was influenced by Gandhi in his approach, and it was just a miracle that there was reconciliation commission there, and it worked. It did work, though the recent developments have not been very encouraging, even in South Africa.
I understand. And probably because they don't have a Mandela like uh, you know guiding post. Because
Yeah,
yes, humans will get influenced by forces that propagate hate,
right.
because there's a larger design, as you say, there's a systemic interest there.
Yes,
And the roots of hatred are present everywhere. It's just a matter of which seeds do you water and which seeds do you let die, is where. And I
correct.
think some people like to water the seeds of hatred.
Yeah, and they have interest in it. In
Yes.
fact, they are driven by a certain kind of interest, and as you say, it's a systemic problem as well.
Yeah.
The individuals are trapped in their uh, cocoon
Yes.
of immediate interest. They don't look at the long term repercussions of propagating hate.
So I want to turn to your journey in a different context. You were trained, your education was in science. Was it science or technology? Pure science or technology?
No, no, no. I was trained as electrical engineer,
Okay.
uh, and I see what happened while growing up. There were two, three things happening. In fact, when I look back at my growing up period, there was this science in the house. Why I'm saying science in the house is that my father was a mathematics and science teacher. My eldest brother was physicist. My sister, next sister, was doing chemistry. Then my other brother was doing physics. Then I was doing engineering, which was slightly different from others. My younger sister was also doing science. So there was science in the family, and it was in the air. It was like, वो कहते हैं ना घुट्टी जिसको कहते हैं घुट्टी में ये चीजें पहुंच रही थी. It was mixed with the uh, water of life that I was receiving from the family. The other thing that was happening was, since I was from a Marxist family, so the ideas of Marxism, the things that were happening in the world, the attack by US forces in various parts of the world, all this was also I was being exposed to. The Marxist literature, the left literature, I was exposed to. And the literature per se, the progressive literature per se, I was exposed to the poetry and uh, Hindi, Urdu, English. And there were a lot of books available which were very cheap, which we could buy with our pocket money, which were translated into Urdu from Russian. And this Russian literature also helped me form my ideas. So all this was there in the air. Ghalib was being quoted as if he is a part of the family. Faiz is being quoted as if he is sitting somewhere on the dining table or sleeping in the other room, probably. Faiz was there. Then at the same time, we had Newton and Einstein also. So the home was a cocoon in which I was growing when I was very little with all these ingredients. The university ambient and atmosphere was also quite progressive. It's not that the reactionary Muslims were not there, they were very strong. Yet the left was also pretty strong. So one could see either at home or in the university the most progressive section of the society. Name any big writer, poet, lyrics writer, and one had seen him in the during our stay in the university. Similarly, all political leaders, left-leaning, Congress, all kinds of political parties, one would hear them. At times, one wouldn't understand. Nehru came to the university. We went there, celebrated. Sister was sitting there. He picked her up, and I was quite jealous that he picked her up. My younger sister, he didn't pick me up. So, anyway, all these things were happening. And that is how my own personality was being molded. My father was arrested and he lost his job. So those stories were there. The family participated in freedom movement. So those stories were there. There was a little bit of religion also. Dadi was very religious person. Then other family members were very religious persons, both men and women. The hate with religion, and now there is no hate, but at that age, started because you were accused of being non-religious. Before you could understand what religion is all about. So the larger society around us, the neighbors, the teachers, some of the teachers in the school, time and again, before you could understand what religion is all about, they started accusing you because your father is an atheist. So you are anti-religion. So you are branded, in fact, before you could attain the consciousness. And therefore, there was a hatred towards, including in the family. The father was criticized by other family members. And whenever he was not there, we were also told that this is what he has done and that is what he has done. And you should not follow his footsteps. All these things were happening. So, but when US started recklessly bombing uh, the Vietnam, and I was in a school, and we regularly had newspapers. There were photographs coming from there. And these photographs very intensely affected me personally. And I couldn't rationalize. So I was asking questions from my father and my elder brothers and sisters about God, which everybody asks. While growing, every child asks, where have we come from and who has made this cosmos, etc., etc. In our own little way, we ask these questions, which are deeper questions. And I asked, because one of my teachers, in fact, had said something related to, when I said adab, he said, oh, you are a Hindu. No, you are a non-believer, which is Dahariya, as they say in Urdu language. Daher is world, so naturalist, all those were considered as galis by those people. So it was almost a gali given to me. And he asked me that, are you a believer? Ultimately, very accusing. Came back, I asked my father that, what is it all about? Is there a God? So my father said very coolly that, if you are asking me, I believe that human beings came out of natural processes and they created God. Then he said something which is stuck to my mind. This is a normal question, answer to question when you ask about whether God is there or not. The other thing that he said was very, very profound, in fact, and that has guided me. That once you believe in God, you're right or wrong, both kind of actions can be justified. Because your God has asked you to do something. Whether you pray, whether you help others, there is no difference between these two. And because your God has asked you to kill somebody, you go and kill. So there is no difference that is in between helping a person in the name of God or killing a person in the name of God. That's stuck to my mind since my childhood. But coming back to Vietnam, those images very intensely affected me, and I asked a simple question, that if there is a God and cannot stop this bombing on children, which is happening now in Palestine, then either he is incapable of stopping the aggressor or he doesn't want. In both cases, then I don't need the God. If he is incapable, I can only hate the God. If he is not stopping, is capable of stopping, but is unable, is not stopping it deliberately, even then I'll hate the God. There's no love for God. And since then, I have never believed in any supernatural power.
Interesting. So, on that, I have a question for you. Being a rational, scientific temperament, having scientific temperament, having gone through this kind of dialogue about God, both with your dad and with yourself, what does your Muslim identity mean to you?
As far as I am concerned, I don't associate my identity as a Muslim personally.
Okay.
I am very conscious of the fact that others will, because my name is Gauhar Raza, and I come from a family which is generally a Muslim family. Lot of mine, but personally, I don't.
And is that
I'm
is that
very clear
no,
that
sorry.
I am not a Muslim, because Muslim has to believe in God and say that he believes in God. And kalma padna, there are 5 things which are necessary, in fact, for a Muslim. So those 5 things, I don't observe any one of them. So I'm not a Muslim.
So when a survey of India comes and asks you for your religion, what do you report?
Atheist.
Oh, there is a place called atheist in survey of
Yeah,
India.
you can
Oh, wonderful.
fill in that.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah.
So now
At
let's
times they ask and fill others.
okay.
So I am the other.
So I have one
but
question.
but when I was asked to join the office,
Hmm.
government service, in private service, nobody asks. During that period, I don't know about now,
Hmm.
but in 70s and early 80s, the last thing which I had to sign. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll not do this, I'll do. There were points there. I'm joining today, etc., etc. Last thing was that in the name of God, I uh, will observe whatever. I refused to sign. And there was a crisis that if you don't sign this, what do we do? And then the director was approached that how do we proceed on this? I said, I won't, because I don't believe in God. So he said, write in the name of Constitution or people of India. I cut it.
Oh, he offered that option to you?
It was, there was nothing I wouldn't have joined.
Wow, that's amazing. So one
I don't
question,
know what later on they did with my.
and so I have one question before I move to science. Is in today's world, where everybody is kind of trying to dominate world, be it China, Russia, America, and I'm sure in his own way, Vishwa Guru also is trying to do that.
Yeah, at
What
least there is a dream.
what is your picture of the power balance in the world? Do you have a view, an idealistic view, even if it seems utopian? But do you have a vision of what is the power balance in the world? And is it
Present power balance or future power balance?
your utopia?
Okay. I dream of a world where the power of the state will wither away. I am a hardcore Marxist on that count. If you call it utopia, it is utopia that I believe in. But I think that it's practically possible to create a world where the state power will wither away. It will not be needed, especially when once the concept of private property, the way it has evolved over a period of time, and the greed, which Gandhi talks about, that will wither away. Then this society can be converted into a society which is where you do not require policemen, where you do not require armies, where you do not require to produce arms, etc., etc. So I dream of that ideal world. I don't think that it's utopia. I think that it's practically possible, and humanity at some point of time will probably proceed towards that, because as uh, as an engineer who has studied a little bit of control theory, this is again system which is not sustainable. It has too much of positive feedback, and positive feedback means that the crisis will develop into a bigger crisis, and a bigger crisis will give birth to even a bigger one. So, which we see often happening. There is control at the moment, but for that you need the police, the armies, the oppressive structure, a whole lot of things that you need. It's not sustainable again. I don't think, even if you apply simplest of control theory, which one studies as uh, uh, a designer or as engineer, especially as electrical engineer.
So that takes me to another question is, so my target audience for this dialogue is a child growing up 3 generations from now. I want to preserve these dialogues for their benefit so that they could be thinking about more deeper issues of the society that they have a legacy of, an imagination that is not caught up in the present culture and mindset and rhetoric. Um, that person, just like you went to your father and asked about God, if that child who's like, say, 15-year-old or 12, 13 years old comes to you at that time and asks you, and let us hope that in that time there will be your utopia would have arrived. What is my identity? What should I take pride in? How would you define that identity?
See, the question of identity is a very deeper question. This issue that you are raising is not very simple to answer once you invoke the question of identity. Because at the moment, there are three types of identity, which I think, which all of us carry with ourselves. One identity is that nature gives you, how tall you are, how short you are, what is the skin color, etc., etc. This is whether your hair is blonde or black or gray, the color of the eye, etc. The other is the set of identities that our social structures give. Our culture gives us those identities, our social structure gives us those identities. And these identities in today's world, you acquire without making any effort. The day you are born, natural identity is given to you. The day you are born, the social identities are given to you. You think that your father, mother has kept your name, even that has a problem. Because if you keep Sharma, Verma, Sayyad with your name, then obviously these names have not been given by your father. The society, the lineage is involved in giving you that part of the name. But anyway, uh, mm, probably I come from that within quotes Muslim family, and therefore my name couldn't have been Om Prakash Tiwari. It's as simple as that. So we carry the bags, and from one bag you are given an identity which you carry in your little bag. The third kind of identity is the identity which you acquire yourself. And I've written about it a little bit, and then taken it to deduce certain conclusions about the identity of a nation. But anyway, I'll not go there. What I'm trying to drive at is that most of the identities that you personally acquire in today's world are secular identities. You become teacher, you become manager, you become a doctor or engineer, or maybe a puncture wala sitting somewhere. These are most of the time secular identities, unless I convert my self to a different religion or caste or whatever. These are secular identities. I think that people do take even today pride in these secular identities. I have become director. I have become, I've completed my PhD. These are the identities that will become extremely important in those times. And other identities will wither away. Maybe they'll remain there, but will be weakened. They will not serve the purpose that they serve today. They'll not be mixed with the ideological or political discussions.
So my takeaway is that the identity that I have agency over will prevail over an identity that society imposes on me.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So now I want to turn to connection between science and poetry. So I'm very curious, how did you make that, why, whether you call it transition, balance, equilibrium, I don't know what you call it. In your head, what is that relationship?
It was very, very natural. As I said, that I in fact romanticize it. That Ghalib was sitting one day, and the next day there was Newton sitting somewhere, and if, uh, so there was no contradiction between the two. In a school, I was president at one point of time. I was president of the Science Society and also president of the cultural group, and especially poetry. I had intense interest in. Both these things fascinated me. The scientific ideas that I was imbibing, in fact, sucking from the air that was around, and the poetry that I was sucking at that time, it was natural, probably. Uh, must have had talent also, because the memory was pretty sharp for uh, poetry, in fact. I could memorize and was good at not very brilliant, but good at what was known as Baitbazi, which is these days called Antakshari. But Antakshari is different from Baitbazi in the sense that, uh, yeah, it has a different structure, slightly different structure, but poetry, based on poetry. And therefore, probably that helped me to articulate some of the thoughts into poetic expression. I think that reading a lot and having a taste for what is known as meter in Urdu, the wazan, helped me a lot in writing poetry. The other thing was that I have never written a poem unless for a purpose, like for a play or for a campaign, where I have not very intensely felt about a problem. So I have not written one or two poems, in fact, which you may call as love poetry, but no love poetry, because I think that so much of it has been written about love that you will be walking the beaten path. You'll be rehashing someone's ideas, and it could be very beautiful, but it doesn't serve much of purpose because somebody has already said it, which I don't mind, in fact, because जो जो खजाना है वो हमारी हमारी सब सारा खजाना संपत्ति है हमारी. So I don't think that one should accuse others of rehashing. It should be rehashed, whatever others and masters have written and used in today's conditions or for future. But I think that the environment at home and in the school helped me do that. I started writing. The first thing that I remember was that Professor Irfan Habib was a very close friend of my father, and many of the progressives in the university were very, very close to it. And there was going to be a history congress in the university, and we had responsibility of serving the tea. Uh, so all those ideas which were being discussed by these giants sitting in what is known, what we called as Baithak, and today it's known as drawing room. So we had the responsibility of serving tea in the evenings. Every day he was there at our place, especially Irfan Sa, because he worked in the union office, which was very close to my house. And they were discussing, on that day, there was a meeting going on, and they were discussing Bertolt Brecht's poem that they wanted to put on the banner. And they were discussing each line. This was related to Bertolt Brecht's poem, where he says that, oh workers, you make the arms, don't use them against each other. Use them unitedly against the aggressor. So this was the poem. I don't remember in English. But I went inside, heard this while serving the tea, went inside, and on a piece of paper wrote some translation of it. Where I remember, हथियार जो तुम तैयार करो, अपनी हिफाजत आप करो. That was one line that I remember. Probably rest of it was not worth remembering again. Therefore, I don't remember. And I took it to my father, that this is what I have translated. And everybody patted and appreciated, and I was very thrilled that I was praised there, and then came back. That is the first incident I remember when I wrote something. But later on, for a very long time, I did not write unless the Chasnala had happened. Chasnala was a major disaster in India where a lot of workers were buried under the coal mine. And that very intensely affected me, that incident. And I wrote a poem which again is lost. I don't also remember it. But that poem was also appreciated both in the house and my parents, my mother, and the school. And then after that, 1983, I wrote a poem on Punjab, which I published for the first time. पंजाब का सीना छलनी है, फिर खंजर चलने वाला है, फिर खून गिरेगा सड़कों पर, फिर दो टुकड़े हो जाएगा. It went on like this. And one, in the end, it says, याद करो वो गलती जो इन दो हाथों ने पहले भी की थी, और जो खून गिरेगा धरती पर वो एक धब्बा कहलाएगा. And it ends like that.
And this is before Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated.
Yeah, it is before that. It is definitely before that. And it was published in Pratap. This was a Urdu paper which was published from Punjab. And Pratap and Milap, these two papers, at one point of time, had the largest circulation in India, in fact. So I received, after some time, I never subscribed this paper. I received a postcard, in fact, saying by the editor that Nazm छाप दी, अच्छी थी, लिखते रहा करो. That's it. So I was encouraged, but I never thought of publishing anything because I had very intensely felt what was happening in Punjab and things were bad and murky. So that is the first poem that I published. And after that, for a very long time, I did not publish. But before that, two poems I had written about Palestine in 1978, in fact. Yeah. आज चमकते चेहरे पर जो खून कटी का रोशन है, इस खून में गर्मी है, अब तक ये खून अभी तक जिंदा है. ये खून जमानत है उसकी, जब तीर तफंगो सफ लश्कर बेमानी बेमसरफ होंगे, और मोहनी गोरी पनघट तक बेखौफ खतर जा पाएगी. तब दूर कहीं मध्यम मध्यम शीरी शीरी बंसी की सदा छा जाएगी. तब नन्हे मुन्ने माथे पर दादी कुछ पढ़कर फूकेंगी. बच्चे स्कूल को जाएंगे, फिर दौ से भरी सब हुस्न लिए इस धरती पर आ जाएगी. तब तक ये रोशन ये टीका है, तब तक इस खून में गर्मी है. This was one poem. The other poem, I'm not reciting it. These are two short poems. In the end, the other poem says कि मैं क्या समझूं मैं क्या चाहूं. It addresses God, saying that ये सब किया तूने, जो कुछ हो रहा है, मैं क्या समझूं मैं क्या चाहूं, तू कादिर भी खामोश भी है. You can do it, but you are silent. You can stop it, but you are silent. मैं खुद ही कुछ कर गुजरूंगा, मैं खुद ही कुछ कर गुजरूंगा. So that is the beginning of my journey. I recited a poem in IIT Mushaira, which I had organized, because the poets got delayed. So the public was getting restless, and our friends said, "Why don't you recite something?" So the thing was that I had to either recite poem of others. Then it was discussed. No, 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 no. You recite what you have written. So I had written something, not a very good poem, but anyway, on Children's Day, uh, and that was the beginning. For a very long time after that, I used to write and keep it somewhere. Never collected it. Shabnam once, in fact, said to Kefi Saab, he always stayed at our place when he came to Delhi, uh, uh, during his last days, in fact.
Hmm.
And Shabnam one evening said that Gauhar also writes poetry. So Kefi Saab said that, why don't you recite? With a lot of hesitation, I said, Kefi Saab, आप लोगों ने जो शायरी कर दी उसके बाद मेरे लिए तो बचा ही नहीं है. उस्तादों की शायरी के बाद तो ये क्या मतलब है? नहीं नहीं, सुनाओ. So I recited one of the poems which I had written, and then Shabnam said that he refuses to publish them. So Kafi Saab said कि देखो भाई, शायरी काला सोना नहीं, तुम्हारी शायरी काला सोना तो है नहीं, तुम इसे छुपा के रखो, इसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं, और कैसी है कैसे नहीं है ये पढ़ने वालों के ऊपर छोड़. This encouraged Shabnam, and she got down to the way she is. She got down to collecting all the poems of mine. पर्चे पे इधर उधर यहाँ वहाँ. I helped her. It's not that I didn't, but she collected all the poems and contacted Raj Kamal, and Raj Kamal published it after a long time when I gave them the manuscript. And Kamna Prasad, a good friend of mine, he made me, she forced me to recite poem in Mushaira. So that is how I became a Mushaira Kavi again.
Do you also, because I was watching a lot of your YouTube videos, you don't sing your poems, right?
No, I can't sing for nuts. I have such a bad voice for singing. I just can't. No, absolutely not.
Have any of your poems been turned into songs?
Yes. There are 2 Malayali films for which I wrote the poems, and they were sung in the films. Then there was a film called Salam India, for which a friend, in fact, the producer was a friend of mine, and he asked me to write, and I wrote poems, and one of the songs was sung by Shubha Mudgal.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah. A few documentaries also my documentaries have my poems, but I can't sing.
But when you create a poem in your imagination, does it ring like a song, or does it ring more like a beat of a poem? Does it follow us any structure?
It does always. One meter or the other. The meter may change, normally not, but may change at some point in the poem. But it does follow a meter, definitely. Okay. Without meter, I've written 1 or 2 poems, maybe 3 poems. I don't remember how many, but they are without meter. In fact, I think personally very, very biased about it, which is not a good thing.
You mean biased in favor of a meter?
In favor of meter, because I think the meter gives not only an opportunity to remember it easily, but also it has its own beauty.
Okay.
हवा चली तो पतझड़ों ने धरतियों को चूम कर कहा बहार आएगी, खिज़ां है चंग रोज की बहार लौट आएगी. There is a meter here, and which gives it a, there is inherent beauty in this meter.
I agree.
Right?
That is
And if you are giving it up,
I agree. So
the beauty of the meter, if you are giving up, then it has to be replaced by something else. And then that something else has to be the beautiful idea. If you don't have intense beautiful idea, don't say a word in that prose.
Okay, so I'm going to do something which I hope your reaction is not of Kaifi Azmi's reaction to me. I'm going to read my poem.
Please go ahead. I'm
the
all
title,
ears.
the title is एक आजाद पंख. मैंने हाथ बढ़ाया लेकिन न थी उसे खबर, वह था मस्त हवा पर सवार एक आजाद पंख.
क्या बात.
निराश हुआ मैं वंचित होकर उसके मुलायम स्पर्श को, जैसे देख रहा था उसे गोता लगाते घाटी की ओर.
वाह.
तब आया मिलने एक हल्का सा ठंडी हवा का झोंका, रोंगटे खड़े हुए मेरे एहसास होते कि मैं भी तो हूं एक आजाद पंख. मेरी भी थी एक जगह माँ की गोदी में, और थी एक पहचान जुड़ी हुई एक झुंड से. जीना था मुझे अनेक के बीच एक, समझाया था मुझे कि पंख बिखरते नहीं. मानवों की तरह पंख को जीना और मरना है सिर्फ अपने समुदाय में. क्या करे लेकिन हालात ही बदल गए, झुंड से रिश्ता ढीला पड़ गया और हो गया मैं बिखरा हुआ आजाद पंख. अब मैं महसूस करता हूं नजदीकी प्रकृति से और आजादी भटकने को. मुक्ति पाई है मैंने अहंकार के बोझ से. डर मुझे रोक नहीं सकता, भारहीन हूं मैं, आजाद ही हूं मैं. पंख फैलाकर करने हवा पर सवारी, कभी मुड़कर, कभी झुककर, कभी झूमकर, कभी गोता खाते मैं दंग हो गया हूं प्रचुर अवसरों में. कोशिश न करो मुझे पकड़ने की या अपनाने की, सोचो भी नहीं कभी झुंड में लौट आने की. बस मुझे उड़ने दो, मिलूंगा कभी कभी, उड़ते उड़ते हल्का सा स्पर्श करूंगा मैं, क्षणिक आनंद महसूस कराऊंगा मैं. साथ लाऊंगा मैं कहानियां दूर दूर की, महसूस करोगे तुम प्यार और सुकुमारता. न सोचो कि मैं उद्देश्यहीन हूं या मैं गुमक्कड़ हूं. सागर की लहरों की तरह या गुजरते बादलों की तरह और आसमान के बदलते हुए रंगों की तरह मैं कुतूहल जगाऊंगा प्रचुर अवसरों के लिए. खोल दूंगा मैं मन की खिड़कियां तुम्हारी नई मुठभेड़ों के लिए, और जगाऊंगा तुम्हारी कल्पना शक्ति को भी. अनजानों का मैं दोस्त हूं, जंगल हो या रेगिस्तान में कभी अजनबी नहीं. अस्पष्टता मुझे सताती नहीं, अनिश्चितता कभी रोकती नहीं, अव्यवस्था मुझे गुमराह करती नहीं. इसलिए मैं हूं एक आजाद पंख.
क्या बात है. बहुत खूबसूरत. बहुत अच्छी है.
इसमें
बहुत
स्ट्रक्चर नहीं
अच्छी.
है.
ये वो पोएम है जिस इंसिडेंट ने आपको शायर बनने पे मजबूर कर दिया.
Yes. So in your framing of poem, what would you frame this as? What kind of a poem would you call this?
ये obviously this is what is known as solid poetry or prose poetry. आजाद नज्म जो उर्दू में कहलाती है, फ्री वर्स जो कहलाती है, वो उसका मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि वो मीटर में नहीं हो. ये उर्दू के हिसाब से नसरी नज्म कही जाएगी. और इसमें क्योंकि इंटेंसिटी है बहुत, जो आपने एक्सपीरियंस किया है उसकी. सी, मेरा मानना ये है, और मैं आपसे सवाल पूछने वाला था ये इस
जी.
नज्म के बाद, कि जब आप ये नज्म कह रहे थे तो आपने अपने को एक नए रेल्म में महसूस किया होगा
जी.
जो नॉर्मल कन्वर्सेशन का रेल्म नहीं होता है, जो नॉर्मल बीइंग का, बीइंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ टू बी का जो रेल्म होता है, वो उससे बाहर निकल के ये नज्म कही गई हो। और ज्यादातर लोग नज्में जो हैं वो उससे बाहर निकल के ही कहते हैं। तो उसमें कभी ऐसा होता है कि आपने जिस रेल में थे आप, वो नॉर्मल नहीं है, और उससे आप वापस आ जाते हैं जब पोएम खत्म हो जाती है। लेकिन जब तक आप उस रेल में हैं, तब तक जो आसपास बिखरी हुई चीजें हैं वो दे विदर अवे। मतलब मैं ये कहता हूं कि अगर मैं रियली जो नज्म लिख रहा हूं, कैंपेन वाली नज्म की बात नहीं कर रहा, वो भी अच्छी या बुरी हो सकती है, पर जब मैं नज्म इंटेंसिटी के साथ लिख रहा हूं, तो अगर कोई मुझे पिन भी चुभाए तो मुझे शायद पता नहीं लगेगा।
जी।
और इसलिए बहुत डरता हूं मैं इस बात से कि कभी ऐसा ना हो कि कोई ऐसा ख्याल आए, जो कार चलाते हुए कभी ऐसा ख्याल आ जाए, बिकॉज देन यू आर इन अ डिफरेंट रेल्म ऑल टुगेदर। एक एक अलग दुनिया में आप होते हैं। तो मेरे ख्याल में इस नज्म में आप एक अलग दुनिया में थे, जहां शायद आप पर थे, और वो उतना लाइट महसूस कर रहे थे, और एक सराउंडिंग में वैक्यूम था आपके। तो मैं इस नज्म को एक खूबसूरत नज्म में जरूर शामिल करूंगा। और क्योंकि ये, जैसा मैं कह रहा था कि इसमें यू हैव गिवन अप, एंड मोस्ट ऑफ द पोएट्री दैट आई हैव नॉट रेड, बट आई प्रिज्यूम मोस्ट ऑफ द पोएट्री दैट यू राइट डज नॉट फॉलो मीटर। तो
नो,
अगर वो मीटर नहीं है तो इंटेंसिटी होना जरूरी है।
सही है।
और इसमें मुझे इंटेंसिटी दिखाई दे रही है इस पोएम में। हालांकि ये पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस के ऊपर है, बट ऑल्सो कमेंट्स ऑन द सोसाइटी, दैट द सोसाइटी इज वर्थ गिविंग अप फॉर समथिंग ग्रेटर,
The same with
फॉर सम
the same with
आइडियल।
the poem that I wrote after Babri Masjid
यस, यस,
verdict. It was my personal experience, but it was a comment on society also.
करेक्ट, बिल्कुल सही,
And this is
बिल्कुल।
also because I think what I have come to imagine is that instead of getting caught up with the narratives that are designed for me, I could go to a place where I create my own narrative, which is inclusive, where I could invite other people, even momentarily, to feel that our reality could be different, beautiful, egalitarian,
या,
and not strewn with violence.
करेक्ट, करेक्ट। आई थिंक दैट it's a responsibility of any artist, including poets, that one should ensure that after reading the poem, the reader must also feel something that you felt while writing the poem.
Correct.
This doesn't happen always. It doesn't happen always because at some point of time, you are in the realm, but you are unable to communicate what you are feeling properly. You do feel and you write it, but you are unable to express it for the reader, which means that somewhere the communication skill has slipped. But you are in that realm. So every time you read your poem, which is non-communicable, then you may go into that realm and may wonder why others are not feeling what I felt. That shows that you need to hone your skills once again to write. You have to go back to your poem and maybe say to your poem that, and ask this question: why are you unable to communicate what I felt very intensely?
Right.
And maybe change here and there. Uh, uh, Normally, I write poems in one sitting, except for very few. which I have completed over a long period of time. But that period of incubation or period of, let me call it pregnancy, is a longer period. That you go through that agony for 2-3 days and then suddenly the poems comes out. This has happened with most of my poems. But some, yes, one had to struggle to complete them because the intensity of feeling was so strong that you were so agitated that you couldn't even pick up the pen, or the images were so gory that appeared in your mind repeatedly that you couldn't continue writing it, and then you had to give some time to come back to it. But most of the time, yeah, I'm sure you have also written in one sitting.
Oh,
The
all,
flow of
all
the
my
poem
poems,
says that
without exception, were written between 2 and 3 at night in one sitting on my phone.
I can imagine.
I sometimes
Heard
tell
your
people,
poem
I
on the
sometimes tell people that my best thoughts have come to me when I was not thinking.
But you have thought for a long time.
Yes.
About the issue, and then suddenly it comes out. I call it period of pregnancy.
I like that. Wonderful. So I want to ask one last question to you. Gathering your whole life experience, if you want to just say something to that child 3 generations from now, what would you say?
Let me recite a poem.
Okay.
To that child.
Yeah.
This poem I had written for a young person. And he came after a mushaira around 4:30 in the morning when we had not eaten and everybody was waiting for the organizers to say that let's go and have our dinner, which was practically breakfast. And this young man came and said to me that your poems have too much of blood and gory images. Can't you write something good? So whatever I could say, I said, and then he went away. He said that I was here only for you because I heard that you are a scientist and you could say something or write something about the setting suns and its beauty and flowers and colors and great eyes and zulfon ke bare mein. So I said whatever. But I thought about it and then wrote this poem. मैं चाहता हूं कि पर्वत पे एक नज्म लिखूं, एक ऐसी नज्म जो पहले कभी लिखी न गई। मैं चाहता हूं कि झरनों का पाकपन लिख दूं। मैं चाहता हूं कि कागज पे काले लफ्जों से करूं मैं सब्त किसी शाम का तमाम शहर। धनक के रंग से खेलूं, लिखूं कि कुदरत ने मेरे कलम के लिए ही रचे हैं राज ये सब। मैं चाहता हूं किसी शाम बैठूं फुर्सत से, वो शाम ऐसी हो जिस पर गुमा हो सुबह का। मैं तेरी आंखों की, जुल्फों की, तेरे होठों की, तेरे बदन की, तेरे पैरहन की बात करूं। कोई ख्याल ना हो, बस ख्याल हो तेरा, तेरे ख्याल में भीगी हुई हो सारी फजा। मैं चाहता हूं कि सर्दी की एक सुबह हो, मेरी बयाज मेरे पास हो लौह कलम, मेरे करीब हो बरगद का पेड़ जो मुझसे। जमाना पहले ये सरगोशियों में कहता था, बचा के रखना ये उम्मीद और ये भोला। वो सारी राज की बातें मैं हूबहू लिख दूं। मैं चाहता हूं कि कोहरे की एक चादर हो, मैं अपनी आंखों में आंसू लिए वहां जाऊं जहां पे छोड़ के आया था अपने बचपन को। कलम की नोक से मैं फिर उन्हें तलाश करूं जो रिश्ते छूट गए और कभी न लौटेंगे। मैं कड़वे नीम के नीचे बनाऊं क्यारी, मैं नन्हे हाथों से पौधे लगाऊं फूलों के। बहार आए तो सब बांट दूं समाने में। मैं चाहता हूं मगर फुर्सते सुखन तो मिले। मैं चाहता हूं मगर तीरशा में गम तो ढले। ये आग खून की बारिश, ये आंसुओं की झड़ी, कदम कदम पे ये नफरत का सरबलंद जुनून, हकीकतें के जो बिखरी है मेरे चारों तरफ। ये 4 रोज की मोहलत तो दे मुझे हमदम, कहीं तो शम्म जले, कहीं तो शम्म जले और कहे कि फुर्सत है। लिखो वो नज्म जो पहले कभी लिखी न गई। आगे आने वाली जनरेशन्स को मेरा ये कहना है कि वो नज्म जरूर लिखें जो मुझसे नहीं लिखी।
क्या बात है, बहुत बढ़िया। थैंक यू वेरी मच। एंड
It was a pleasure
one
talking
last
to you.
do you, since you are a non-believer, rational, secular person, do you say Khuda Hafiz or you don't say Khuda Hafiz?
These are expressions of hello and goodbye, so I don't mind because I don't believe in it. For me, it's an expression of saying goodbye. So I don't have problem, but I'll prefer bye bye
Okay,
or मिलते हैं,
chalo. Wonderful,
नमस्कार, आदाब,
wonderful,
whatever.
wonderful.
So
So जरूर मिलेंगे sometime, someday, and I'm really I immensely value our conversation. I hope it wasn't as taxing as your 2-hour conversation before this.
no, it was fun and beauty.
Okay.
Sheer pleasure.
Bye bye, and please say hello to Shabnam.
I will.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, see you.
मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला। हो आज रंग दे, हो माए रंग दे, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, तेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, माए रंग दे बसंती